Taoiseach, you boasted earlier on about the increased construction of housing under your government. What you're not acknowledging is that the vast majority of what's being delivered is completely unaffordable. We get 10% social housing on private developments, the rest is unaffordable rents, unaffordable house prices, and the result is a record homelessness, particularly egregiously for families and children. If you were buying houses instead of leasing them and getting a higher proportion, we might actually impact as well as building social and affordable housing as we need. But I have been asking and got agreement in principle that there would be statements from Minister O'Brien giving an update on Housing for All for weeks now. There was supposed to be 4 a year. There was a commitment that would be 4 progress reports a year about Housing for All. They disappeared from the agenda, which maybe suits the government. You know, let's point the finger at migrants, but not talk about the government's record to actually deliver social and affordable housing. So when are we going to have the statements, as promised by Minister O'Brien, on the Housing for All and addressing the housing and homelessness crisis in this country?
Well, look, I think there's very many legitimate requests for a debate in relation to migration. I think what's not legitimate is when members of this House say things that are completely offensive and Trumpian, in fact. When you say things like mouthpieces in media, when you say things like there hasn't been a debate in this House, that's just untrue, Deputy. So, like, Count Corley, you can sure check the record of this House. I mean, many debates. So for the old social media clip, you stand up and you slur the media. You call them mouthpieces because, you know, that's kind of Trumpian, isn't it? You get a few likes in America on that, a few retweets, and then you say there's been no debates. Why can't you be like? I mean, many members of the opposition have asked for a debate in relation to migration. I'm happy for there to be a debate in this House in relation to migration. I think it's a matter for the Business Committee to decide when best to schedule that. We have our business schedule this week. You've had many private members' motions this week. Is there 3 private members' motions? 3? Sure, no, and you also had, I think you have 2 private members' motions in this House this week, one on a very important topic indeed. But I mean, there are options for people in terms of how they wish to use their proportion of Dáil time as well. We are happy to have a debate on migration in this House, and we're happy to engage with the Business Committee as to how best to go about that and the appropriate time and the appropriate time for that. But let's also have a degree, when we have that debate, again a degree of context and fairness. The government met today and the government considered 10 actions in relation to how we can look at a whole variety of ways to make our migration system more sustainable. This is not a question of abject failure. This is a question of looking at how the numbers have gone from about 3,500 people a year to a situation where we saw 106,000 people fleeing war in Ukraine since 2022 coming to these shores, where we've seen international protection numbers rise very significantly. And we're having to build systems in real time to respond to that situation. I'm very satisfied that a number of the actions that we've taken today are very much that whole of government joined up approach that we want. In relation to a debate on Housing for All, again, I have no difficulty with that being scheduled for the appropriate time. In fact, the government has an awful lot that it wishes to say in relation to the progress being made in relation to housing.